dun, 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 dun. Wasn't working. Looking good, Eaton.
Hey Jeff, 1 minute to showtime.
Live from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, it's the Big Cancer Hookup.
It's the Big Cancer Hookup with Annette Riley, Blair Richardson, Scott Adams, Jennifer and Paul Ryan, Karine Chalafour, musical guest Kathy Stock, and your host Jeff Eaton.
Hey gang, you are here in the 2020 version of the Big Cancer Hookup. And we are pumped that you have decided to join us again from coast to coast to coast across this incredibly vast and beautiful land we call Canada. Literally, locally, socially, hooking up with us from Victoria to Vancouver, Calgary, Red Deer, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Winnipeg, Sudbury, Waterloo, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, Fredericton, Halifax, and here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. My name is Jeff Eaton. I am the Executive Director of Young Adult Cancer Canada. I am also a two-time cancer survivor. And for those who are alumni to YACC and have been here for the many times or even one more time than this, and to all the rookies that have just connected with YACC for the first time tonight, and this is your very first YACC thing, to all of you, I want to say welcome home. This is the club that no one wanted to be in, but I think it's one of the few good things that cancer has done, is it gave us all a reason to connect and get together in community, whether that's online, in the local social hangouts, and of course in the 4-day amazing power events that YACC runs. So welcome to the Big Cancer Hookup. This is an initiative of Young Adult Cancer Canada that came to be when we saw that there was really a kind of a hole in the programming that we offer throughout the year. And of course, it's easier to get together, to get out of the house and to get out in social connections in those spring, summer, and even early fall months. But during the winter, it is often a little tougher. So that is where the original idea for this Big Cancer once a year webcast that Young Adult Cancer Canada puts off, that we call the Big Cancer Hookup. It came from that idea of creating something in the winter, in the freezing coldness, that would give us all a chance to come out and connect, because we know the power of connection and how important that is. So that is where the hookup came from, and then it evolved and has grown over the years, like all good ideas. It has evolved and grown into this beautiful, awesome, biggest hookup yet ever, and we're super, super pumped about that. We're grateful to have you with us. You will hear over time, throughout the next hour or so tonight, but throughout your whole time at YACC, you will hear the phrase, every cancer, every stage, YACC's got your back. And you will hear that because it is authentically true. You know that when you are diagnosed with cancer, you go into the cancer system, and for the most part, that is divided up based on what part of you has cancer. Because, of course, for treatment, that's incredibly important. But I would suggest to you that for everything else in your life, where you are in your life matters much more than where the cancer is in your body. So at YACC, it's not about where your cancer is. It's every kind of cancer comes to YACC. Every stage of cancer, we mean a couple of things by this. 1, 2, 3, 4 stages of cancer, come to YACC. All are welcome. And of course, those that are diagnosed and they're in that early stage of their experience, even diagnosed today, you can come to YACC. You can be 10 or more years out and feel like you still need to connect with people that are just like you, and everything in between. We literally mean every stage. And the YACC's got your back phrase, this mantra of ours, is our commitment to have your back as long as you want. You can think of us like the all-you-can-eat buffet of cancer survivorship. We are here with a whole collection of these programs, and you can come and connect in as often or as little as you want. We will be here, and we'll have your back for the long run. Now, I don't just do this show on my own. There is a whole crew and a whole bunch of people that help make it happen. But in the show, co-hosting the show, writing the show, making a lot of this happen is my fantastic and fabulous co-host, Kathy Stock and the Chemo Brains.
Hello, my friend.
So great to see you again this evening.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Unfortunately, the chemo brains once again forgot to come.
The annual joke, and I love that joke song, and we're going to keep making it.
Every year, I love it too.
I know. Maybe one year they'll show, and they'll surprise the hell out of all of us.
People are starting to wonder if they're real people, and we'll just have to keep you guessing.
That's right, totally. We're super pumped that you're here, and really grateful for you to be here.
I'm so grateful to be here. I love the hookup.
Yeah, me too.
Good time.
It is good, and we'll be hearing a little bit of your voice, the speaking voice, but also perhaps the singing voice later on, and those keys and that big, beautiful upgrade of an instrument we've got going on this year.
It was hard to fit in the car, but made it happen. Made it work.
And here at the Salt House in downtown St. John's, big thanks to your connections to hook up with this beautiful new environment that we have.
Incredible people, incredible place, right here in St. John's.
Yeah, really, really great. Yeah, and featured in the new opening, of course. Those of you that have seen the hookup before will know how awesome we've done with the opening. Another upgrade from previous years.
That's right. Gets better and better every year.
It does get better and better every year. That's right. Now, a couple of quick highlights from the last little while. For those of you that aren't following YACC's every single post, I don't know how many of you that is, hopefully not many, but we have had a whole collection of amazing milestones in the last few years. But particularly in the last 12 months, some real transformational changes happened. You've heard about the YACC Prime study, YACC, YACC, Young Adult Cancer in their Prime study. This is a study that YACC developed in partnership with Dr. Sheila Garland. We've been releasing this data directly to you guys as soon as we hear about it. In the fall, we were able to take that out to a whole group of professionals at the International Psycho-Oncology Conference. And then actually through our biggest media effort ever, we took that to Canadians across the country all throughout the fall. And some of these early findings are really, really important for us in this YACC community to know about, but very specifically for others to know about. We're learning things about how intense fear of cancer recurrence is for us young adults. And you're sitting there saying, yeah, no, imagine. I get that, totally. Fear of recurrence is a huge challenge for young adults with the cancer, and distress really, really high. You can imagine that mental and financial health are also showing intense points of pain and real struggle. We've had for years kind of one-to-one stories about these kinds of issues, and what YACC Prime is doing is it's providing us with data that really shows the magnitude and the significance of the individual struggles that we've been dealing with and seeing every day in our work at YACC. So one of the real specific things that I have found personally most striking to hear about has been that financial piece. Some of the data that we've uncovered so far in the analysis of the Prime study has really shed light on some of the unique challenges and points of pain that you all are dealing with as a result of a diagnosis of cancer. And Karine Shalley-For, YACC's incredible program director, she leads all those 4-day events and oversees all of our programs. She had a chance to connect with one of your peers, Netflix actress and alumni of Retreat, Annette Riley. So here is Karine's chat with Annette to talk a little bit about Annette's experience and particularly some of those financial struggles that we know so many young adults are facing. Here's the tape. Let's see the interview.
And boom!
big thing we've been talking about a lot in the last few months after we got some of the data from the YACC Prime study is finances and cancer. So in very short, I don't have all the numbers in my head, sorry Jeff, but in short, what we're finding, because we were curious to say, okay, is financial struggle a thing that is kind of universal for young adults in general? Or is there maybe an additional impact when cancer happens in your young adult years, 15 to 39? So we looked at that. The study compared two groups, group with cancer, group who didn't have cancer, different group aged, under 35, over 35, and then realized that actually, you know what? Cancer matters. Mm-hmm. Cancer has a significant impact financially.
Oh, money and cancer. I mean, a little bit about my own personal situation was I wasn't in a great place financially when cancer happened. My ex-husband and I got into some pretty big debt. I mean, not massive, but it was big for what our income was. Yeah. And we were just starting to get out of it right before the cancer. I had taken all these steps and learned all this stuff about finances in my late 20s that I wish I had learned in my teens. I had finally figured out how it all works, and then boom, we're hit with cancer. I couldn't work with the intestinal cramping I was having. I basically couldn't work from the September all the way through for at least a year. Mm-hmm. I didn't work. And keep in mind, before that, I was pregnant a year and a half before that. Yeah. So I was only working minimal hours to begin with for that, up to the pregnancy and after the pregnancy. So we were basically just in survival mode financially when cancer hit, because we had just had a baby, putting him through school.
You were young,
we
starting
were young.
Your lives.
Yeah, and we didn't expect anything like this to happen. We didn't have any critical illness insurance. Mm-hmm. We fortunately had gotten life insurance prior to it. And that was only because Gwen was born. Like, we wouldn't have had that if we weren't parents.
Yeah. Work insurance either.
Work insurance, nothing. And I had some experiences with the cancer agency where they're like, well, haven't you looked into financial help for cancer, people with cancer and in medical need? And I'm like, no, when am I going to do this? And with what brain power?
Yeah.
Because
am I supposed to know?
I can't even recall certain words right now. How am I going to research financial aid for medically ill people?
Yeah. Very good question, people.
Yeah. So unless I had somebody else there to do it for me, I didn't have the capacity to do it. No. And by the time I was through and was able to start thinking straight again, it was too late, basically. So after treatments happened, my ex and he finally got through school and he started making a bit of money, and I was back at work, but only part-time because I had my kid. And childcare is expensive. Mm-hmm. And we were starting to dig ourselves out of debt, but cancer had definitely put us in a weaker financial position. Yeah. And then him and I split up. I worked the next 3 years. I worked my butt off. I was a single mom. I was working 3 jobs for 2 of those 3 years. And I was getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night on average.
Wow.
Because I was really dedicated to getting out of debt. I wanted to be free of that.
Yeah.
And it took a toll on me physically, for sure. And but it's also brought me to this place now where I'm working in film, both behind the camera and in front of the camera. And contrary to popular belief, being an actor in Canada isn't very financially lucrative.
So you're not like
I'm not rolling in it. No, I'm not out every night, spreading the love. No, in fact, the average Canadian actor makes about $11,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so that can put
So,
it
you
into
know.
context. Yes.
So to get out of that, so you were working, and I know you worked in pubs and restaurants.
Yeah. But then I decided to transfer full time into film making, like behind the scenes, and I production coordinate now. And I was just a producer's assistant, giving that a go. Not that that makes a lot of money either.
Trying it out.
But but I'm in the union world now, and but the thing is, yeah, I'm making much better money now, but I'm also working 60 to 80-hour weeks. So I've sacrificed my family time. I'm fortunate in that I have an absolutely amazing new relationship, and we just got married in August. He has been willing to take on a lot of the home duties so that I can go out and achieve my dreams and do the stuff that interests me. And fortunately, the stuff that interests me also makes a bit of money on the side. Yeah. But I just think, where would I be career-wise if this had all happened earlier, if I hadn't had...
It was put on hold for
it was hugely put on hold. Yeah.
And starting from... You had to start with debt, basically. And I know a lot of people would say, well, everybody has debts. Yes, fair enough. Having debts related to an event that was kind of out of your control, that's very different. In the reality, when you actually get sick, there are a lot of side expenses that you didn't expect.
Parking.
Exactly.
For Pete's sake, at the hospital.
Average, I think it's like minimum of $100 a month. So when you earn practically nothing, because you're not working, you have no assets, and you have on top of that to put an extra $100, $200, $300 a month towards just getting through cancer, that definitely puts you behind.
Yeah, it can make you destitute.
So you're saying you feel like you're kind of just starting now to get out of
I would say it's I'm not debt free at the moment, and I don't have a huge amount of savings, unfortunately. I'm 38 and I'm sitting here freaking out about retirement because I'm like, how am I going to get there?
Right.
Because I've spent the last decade basically just getting out of debt, because after one thing and then the next thing and then the next thing, and I feel like I am finally starting to see the light.
Yeah.
Finally, after all this time.
And you said like you'd learn, is there anything that you can share that you found this is really useful, or everybody should know this? Like when it comes to finance and money, like I know someone we had at our conference at some point, we were talking about line of credit and saying, really, anyone who can should get a line of credit, because sometimes when shit hits the fan, it's a bit different in having packed credit cards, which is something they're seeing in the young adult with cancer. In the research study we had, there are all kinds of bad debts that you accumulate, not because you're bad, because you kind of have no choice. Where he was saying, when you are in a position to maybe have not necessarily 20 line of credit, but at least have one, that can make a difference. So we're like, okay, that's kind of important information. But is there anything else that you would say, okay, check this out? Or
I think the biggest thing that I learned, and maybe it's commonplace, I don't know, but it was new to me, the concept was pay off the highest interest rate debts first. So that's usually the credit cards, the 19.99% or the 21.5% or whatever. Make sure you know what the interest rates are on your loans. That's one thing. And then really do the bare minimum on the low interest stuff and just pile the money onto those high interest. Or if you can, I had a financial advisor who is a friend of mine, and she took me under her wing, and they don't cost money. Financial advisors do not cost money.
No.
They can help you create a plan that you then have to act with and on.
That's like everything, but
yes, you have to do the work, but they can help you organize your life, and they only make money through stuff like tax-free savings accounts, setting those up for you, or insurance. They get a little kickback from the company, not from you. You don't have to pay anything out of your pocket. So I would highly suggest finding a financial advisor, one that you can trust. There's some big companies that I'm like, I won't mention the names, but if you can find someone you trust and who really has your best interests in mind, then I highly suggest that.
Yeah.
And really, it's a matter of just being honest with yourself about how much you spend
Yeah.
on parts of your life.
Right.
And then don't live beyond that.
It can be helpful to rein things back in a bit.
Yeah.
Take a pause and
Yeah.
say, okay, where is my money going?
Yeah.
Especially, and sometimes people will say, I don't have any, so it's not even an issue.
Yeah.
But if you're starting to kind of build something back up,
Yeah.
those are good, good points.
Oh, and pay yourself first. So have your savings come out automatically whenever you get paid.
Yeah.
And pay yourself. So your tax-free savings account or your RRSP or whatever, just put money automatically into those. Even if it's $25.
Yeah.
You know, $25 a month. That's where I started. I
Yeah.
started doing $25 a month for my tax-free savings account and $25 a month for my daughter's RESP. That was all I could afford, was that $50.
That's it.
And it has grown and grown and grown. And sometimes I have to take breaks. There's some times where I'm not, I'm not, I don't have a job coming up or something, and I panic and I'm like, Joyce, help, we need to pause these payments right now. And that's okay.
Yeah,
That's
nothing
fine.
is definite. It's not,
No.
and that's a good point too. I
Yeah.
think sometimes when you're in a position to do something, do it, knowing that if it ever needs to change or be adjusted in time,
Yeah.
you can do that too.
Yeah, yeah. And what I love about tax-free savings accounts is that you don't get penalized if you take money out of them,
Yeah.
whereas the RRSPs you do.
Yeah.
So I have very little RRSP because I'm one of those people that's like, what if I need this money? Oh my gosh.
But you've been through something that
Yeah.
meant I need money
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, exactly,
You know?
exactly. So I use the tax-free savings account, and I've never ever hit my annual limit of contributions because
Yeah.
it's way above what most people.
I know. It's kind of funny when I do my tax. I'm like,
It's like,
but these are good
Yeah.
things. And I think sometimes when we talk about money, money is a big stressor.
huge.
So much stress goes into this
One of the biggest.
for
Yeah.
so many good
Yeah.
reasons. And so for
Yeah.
us, like, if we can support our community members by sending everybody a big nice check, which would be lovely. I think though, knowing, so getting informed is
Yeah.
one way to help.
Yeah.
We know that it doesn't necessarily always bring in money, but also I would say, because what you said, like being off work for a year, you're not out to lunch. It is between 1 and 4 years. That is in our YACC Prime study. I think it is, the percentage is wacko. Like I think it's almost 50%, if not more, of young adults who go through cancer will be off work 1 to 4 years. Imagine that. Of course it's going to have an impact on your financial life.
Yeah.
And it's going to have an impact up here.
Yeah.
Because you're not able to be productive in a way you thought you were going to be.
Yes.
So then in the middle of taking care, there will be and might be a period of time where you have less money, but then to take the time to do some of what I know you've done, which is let's pay attention to my heart, my emotions, my mental health, so that I can eventually go back to a productive life.
Yeah.
Whatever this means.
I'm speaking from a place of privilege too, because I am one of the people who have been able to go back to work and have been able to rebuild. And I know not everyone even has the finances to save. So I've been there too.
Yeah.
But
again, we know that not everybody's in a situation where they can maybe apply or do some of what you did.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of people who are.
Yeah.
But all in all, again, it is about like getting rid of that shameful feeling around money. And I think perception of other people and status, and there's so much that comes with a cancer diagnosis when you're young, where all of a sudden there is this deconstructing piece and grief of what you actually thought what your life was going to be.
Yeah.
And then where it goes. Cancer screws finances. Let's work together at finding solutions for that.
find your new balance, because that's an accounting term.
Oh my God,
Karine and Annette, thank you so much for taking the time to give us the video. That was great that you took the time to talk about that piece of your story, Annette. We're grateful for that. Just to touch on some of Karine's points there, some of the numbers, 49% of young adults are off work 1 to 4+ years. I remember the first time I told a mom of a young adult survivor that stat. And she really kind of felt this relief a little bit because her son had been off work for a couple of years, and she thought, so he's normal. Like that's average to be out of work or school that long. 61% of young adults are seeing medical expenses of at least $100 a month. And as Karine mentioned, like when incomes are dropped drastically, that $100 a month can be really, really challenging to face. The good news that we've seen in the PRIME study from the data is that over time we are recovering on income. We're out of the workforce for a while, but we are seeing that recovery on income, and that's a positive thing that we've seen from the data so far. Now, we know cancer affects all areas of your life, and this definitely includes that intimate issue of identity and how we connect with ourselves and what we think of ourselves. And my lovely and talented co-host, Kathy, connected with a whole bunch of YACCers to pull together a video to hear some of your experiences and connections. So I'm going to toss and let's see that video and let's hear your voices on this issue now.
Cancer is a natural disaster.
Something that tried to take my life from me.
Cancer is like being on a merry-go-round.
Cancer is scary.
A great big bag of shitty balls.
A force of destruction.
Cancer is a giant, sinking douche canoe.
It affects us mentally, physically, and emotionally on levels we're never prepared for.
Cancer's resilient, but I am too.
Cancer's a taker, but I'm not giving right now.
But I am my own life raft.
But I'm not gonna give up.
But I am stronger than broken.
But I am alive.
Yeah, thank you again, Kathy, for pulling that together, and thank you to all the YACCers who participated in the video. We love having you be part of this show and hearing your voices and your stories. It's what makes it go around for us. You know, another really excellent piece of PRIME data that we've discovered so far is this power of feeling connected. We would do the work that we do anyway. We see the impact of it every day, but to see the data show such really striking pieces around the feelings of connection that you report. So those young adults dealing with cancer who feel connected to a community like YACC have, you know, higher and more frequent constructive, they call it, adaptive coping. That's things like journaling and expression and spiritual growth, those pieces. And then they have lower maladaptive, the psychologists call it, the destructive stuff like, you know, substance abuse or denial. And then another really powerful piece of that is this post-traumatic growth space. So those that are feeling connected to community show higher levels of post-traumatic growth, and those with the lowest support actually show the biggest gain. So really, really valuable insights for us on our work, and as you can imagine, valuable data for us to have when we go to other stakeholders, whether it's in the health sector or philanthropy or government, to talk about the work that YACC does. This is really invaluable information that we've gathered from you guys, and that we're able to bring to these people now so they understand just how powerful and important it is. And connection is really kind of the core business at YACC. It is the thing we're here to do. And my friend and co-host Kathy was in that place of isolation and struggling with identity, and I know a collection of things. And she came to my office one day to meet with me, and quite honestly, she flipped me off. I mean, she basically walked out of the office and seems like a nice guy, but I'm never going to see him again. And that is really what she did. And then like 6 months later, I got a message that said, I think you have what I need.
That's what you do, Jeff Eaton. You plant the seed and then get people what they need through YACC. It's absolutely incredible. It's actually something I'd like to talk a little about to some of our newbies. That's all right with you. We've got some newcomers here tonight. If this is your first connection with YACC at all, welcome. And we have some programs and some things that you can connect with. So we have a Facebook alumni page where it's just young adult cancer survivors who can talk freely and openly about their stuff, and it's private and just for us. And I think we're well over 1,000 people in that right now.
Yeah.
So you are welcome in that space. We also have our online profiles, which are at our website, youngadultcancer.ca, where you can find profiles of different people, different ages, different diagnosis, and you're able to connect with somebody whose story you resonate with. And it really makes a difference when you know you're not the only one. That was one of the most monumental things for me when I was diagnosed with cancer. In meeting Jeff was one of the first times that I felt like I wasn't the only one. And so that's really powerful. Other ways that you can connect are face-to-face events. So Local Life, some of you are at a Local Life event tonight for the first time. You're brave. That's a big, brave thing to do, is to step into a space like that for the first time. We're so glad that you're here. Local Life is an awesome thing that happens in local cities across the country, and it's just a social time. You go bowling, carve pumpkins, all that stuff, and it's a really good time to connect with people that you may have never been able to connect with prior to that. Other things that we have are retreats, which are a little bit more intensive and they're more personal. You get to go away with some people. That was my first Young Adult Cancer Canada experience, and it completely changed my life and my husband's life. Supporters are welcome at retreats as well and at Local Life. And the last thing that we do, where we can meet face-to-face, is at a conference. Survivor Conference happens annually somewhere in Canada, and we're so excited to do that in May this year. So just connect with us online. If you need more information or want to know more about it, you can go to youngadultcancer.ca. So that is, because it's all about connection, Jeff.
Beautiful
all
summary. Yeah, it is. And I often say those programs you just talked about are, they're the things that we do every day at YACC, the web-based, the local, and the 4-day. But they can also be viewed as kind of on-ramps, if you will, to get into this beautiful, awesome community of YACC. That's another way of looking at our programs. This idea of connection and community, like that is core what we do daily. So getting into that community, I think, of course, is one of the best decisions you've made in your cancer life. And last summer, we had one of those new connections come into our life, and a guy named Blair Richardson out of Calgary. He came to YACtivist training, had a profound experience, and has been engaged sharing his experiences through the YACC social channels since then. And I got to catch up with Blair in a video chat this week to talk about his experience and give you some of his perspective on where he is and how he's living with cancer every day. Here is my great chat with Blair Richardson, YACtivist from Calgary, Alberta. Here we go. All right, Blair Richardson, YACtivist, Calgary, Alberta, young adult cancer survivor, and thanks so much for joining us on the Big Cancer Hookup, dude. We are really glad to have you.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Yeah, we're pumped to have you and your story here to connect with us today on the show this year. Blair, you are a young guy, and you were a younger guy when you got sick. Just tell us a little bit about Blair before he heard those words, "You have cancer."
Yeah, I was doing my Bachelor of Education at Mount Royal University in Calgary. It had just summer break had just kind of started, and I just finished my spring job and started a job at a summer camp as a summer camp counselor, which is a job that I absolutely love. I've done it for a long period of time, and I was just gearing up with a new camp, and we did week 1 of training, and I felt fine. I felt a little bit breathless and a little more tired than usual. And then the first week of camp, and again, starting to feel it a little bit more. And then that weekend I went home and just was so sick all weekend. And on Monday morning, I went to the doctor, and he said, "You need to get to the ER right now." And that's kind of where my whole journey started.
Right. Yeah. And then from there, you go to the ER, you get some tests, and they find out that your blood is out of whack.
Yep.
And then, from my experience, having had AML, a blood disorder like you, like it flows quickly from there.
Yeah.
Some of our brothers and sisters have struggled to get that diagnosis. Most of my buddies and yackers who have had the blood cancers, it's quick. Once they discover that they see on a blood test, it doesn't take long from there. So you move on from that. If you look back and you think about like who you were before and who you are now, is there one thing that you really think about as far as how you have changed as a person and as a young guy since cancer?
I think I think a lot of people say this, is that they just accept life and try to live life to the fullest after cancer, kind of thing. The reality of dying and not getting to experience things is a lot stronger now. And now I just try and do every little experience that I can, even if it's something not nice. Like on Boxing Day, I told my girlfriend I want to go shopping just so that I can like experience Boxing Day shopping, because I've never fully gone and done it before. And it was horrible, but it was the experience that I really wanted to get.
Yeah, I get it totally. Well, I mean, at least you get to have that experience, and you can appreciate the horribleness just like everybody else.
Yeah.
And you cross that off your list now, so you don't have to go back next year. Probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Blair, I know you're in this space where you're having treatment, at least in the expectations right now, are for the rest of your life. So you're in this path of a consistent hit of chemo, and then a period of recovery, and then back for more chemo.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how that is shaping your life right now. Like that's a space that's challenging in itself physically, but I know, as we know, like the physical always connects to the mental and the emotional. How is that shaping your life right now?
Yeah. So I'm on a 6-week cycle. So I do chemo for 5 days straight, and then I have the rest of the time off. And so it takes about 5 days afterwards to recover from my chemo. So it's about a 10-day block in a 6-week cycle that I feel awful. And then the rest, I'm just happy and I'm living life and I'm feeling good. And unfortunately, my cycle has kind of spread out so long that by the time my next chemo cycle rolls around, I'm feeling sad and kind of bummed, because I've gotten a taste of what life would be like without cancer, kind of thing. And I'm out living my life, and then it's like, oh, I have to deal with this again. And it gets frustrating. And because for some reason my chemo cycle always seems to end up at the worst time, when I want to really do something on the weekend. And unfortunately, we can shorten my cycle, but we can't lengthen it at all. So like, I plan on going to conference this year, and conference lands right in one of my chemo cycles. So I'm going to have to figure out how to finagle things around so that I can go to conference this year. But yeah, it's just that hit every 6 weeks that really brings down my mental state.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. And that itself is a mental challenge, just getting around, this 6-week cycle that is your life now at some significant level. And, a lot of things are impacted by that. There's no question. Well, I hope you figure out the shortening of that cycle, because we definitely want to see you in Winnipeg for the conference in May.
We will for sure figure it out.
Yeah, we can't wait. And listen, going through that space of chemo and then recovery, which is like largely like probably exhaustion and getting all that poison out of your body. Yeah. But then the reality that you live with this compromised immune system, how do you make the choices between protecting yourself and managing the risk with living life to the fullest, as you've said?
Yeah. I wrote a blog about it a few weeks ago, so check that out on the YACC website. But it's, like you said, it's all about managing risk versus reward. So I know when there's sick people around me, or like in my little hobby group, if someone's sick, I avoid it, because I don't want to get sick. It's a lot harder when you have no immune system. Even just a cold takes a lot out of you. But then if it's like a once in a lifetime experience, I don't want to pass that up. Like my girlfriend and I went to the teddy bear toss in Calgary, and a stadium full of 20,000 people, probably not the best place to have gone when you have no immune system, but I really wanted to have that experience. And I did everything I could to keep myself safe. I used hand sanitizer and washed my hands a lot, and it all turned out fine. I didn't get sick from it. Another thing would have been the activist training. Flying on a plane, but prior to doing that, I had read that you're much more likely to get sick on a plane. So I got like a heavy duty hospital mask to wear for the whole flight. And there was the side of embarrassment of having to wear that and what other people are thinking about you. But I knew that I didn't want to get sick on that plane ride to feel sick when we were in Toronto. And so I wore it.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And Blair, I know there's a lot of changes in our social spaces and our personal relationships when cancer comes. You're still connected to your parents. Like, how do you feel that part has changed over time? Because again, like me, I was 22 when I was originally diagnosed. I had just moved out, got sick, moved back home. recovered, moved out, got sick again, moved back home again. It took me 3 times before I got it right. It is one of those places where it's great to have your parents to lean on when you need them, even though, if we're being honest, likely neither of us would have chosen that to be back there. How has that relationship evolved over the course of your experience and your cancer diagnosis?
It's hard living with my parents at the age that I'm at. I see all my peers going off and they've got all their own places and their own lives, and I'm still at home kind of thing. And it's a bit of a downer, but my parents have gotten a lot more cognizant over my cancer treatment. Before I was kind of re-diagnosed after my bone marrow transplant, my mom especially was really pushing me to get back out into the world, and I think that was kind of just her way of having me looking like I'm feeling better kind of thing, and knowing that I'm feeling better is if I'm able to go back to university and all those kinds of things. But now they're not pushing me. They're happy that I'm out living the life that I am and that I'm getting out of the house especially, and so they're doing really well. But luckily, I'm kind of at the point where I'm like talking with my girlfriend about moving out. She'll be moving into my family's house over the summer because my parents go away for the summer, and then come fall we'll be moving out on our own. And I'm really excited to do that and to take that point in my life, and that my health is well enough for me to be able to do that.
Yeah, and like great that you got the support from your family, and extra special to have found a partner like you have who's around and obviously growing and living life with you. Like that is so great to hear. Yeah. If you think back to the summer when you came, it was like your first YACC thing, really. You came to the activist training. Yep. Like that was a unique experience for everybody who was there. For someone new to YACC like you, it would have been extra unique because you wouldn't have done yet a retreat or a conference. What stands out for you? Is there something that you kind of took away that was the most memorable thing we did at that training?
Yeah, like I had only ever done local life stuff leading up to that, and I love our local life community, but I never got the full experience of a Canada-wide YACC kind of thing. And then going to Toronto and meeting all the other activists, and now knowing that I have friends and support all across Canada was just like the biggest impact on me. It's amazing knowing that I have such a large support network and that we're all there for each other. And just getting to meet all these people. The downtime was my favorite because we just got to hang out with each other, and I got to meet other people and learn other perspectives. And yeah, it was just amazing. I loved YACC training, and I can't wait to go to retreat and conference this year. This year's the year of YACC for me, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, we are pumped that it's the year of Blair for us. So we can't wait to have you at retreat and conference. And thank you for sharing your story here on the Cancer Hookup, but also through the blogs on the web. And through the social channels. It makes a real difference for other survivors to hear stories of their peers. So thank you so much for connecting and hooking us up on the show here tonight.
No worries. Thanks, Jeff. This is my first big cancer hookup, so I can't wait to go.
Woo! Awesome. Thanks, Blair.
Thank you.
Okay, dude.
Blair, my buddy, thank you for taking time to connect with me, and extra high five for taking the risk and to going to the teddy bear toss. And perhaps for checking off Boxing Day shopping on your bucket list. Who had that on their bucket list before hearing Blair talk about it? I did not. I'm not sure I'm going to add it on, though. But I definitely connect with that idea, that balance of risk of infection and other things and, living life. I have a beautiful John Mellencamp story that I'll tell you another time, less than 100 days post-transplant. But it was totally worth it. It was totally worth it. Now, we've talked a lot about Prime because it's such a big part of YACC, and some of the things we've learned, the data will continue to flow. You're going to hear about it. If I have my way about it, you're going to hear about Prime for about 3 to 5 years. There's that much data in there, that much power from your stories. But the other thing that I found striking as I got into this thing was I spent a lot of time with researchers, and I've kind of been immersed in that world, certainly a lot more than I ever had. And some big things stuck out to me, and one of them is, I think, this tendency to do 100 things one step deep. And my interest, I have to tell you, is to do this one thing 100 steps deep. So this research piece to me, some of the big facts that I've discovered about this system and how it operates really struck me. So I grabbed my buddy Trist and I wrote a rant about it, inspired by obviously our fellow Newfoundlander that we love, Rick Mercer. And here is my thoughts on some of these things that we got to change in the research system. It's our turn. It really is. You've had your way with the system and the gazillions of dollars in research spending and the priorities and choices. And honestly, you've made a mess bigger than my 8-year-old with his massive bucket of Lego on a snow day. And as painful as it is to step on one of those tiny 1x2 blocks, the mess you've made is far more serious. You, our trusted leaders in cancer research, are doing your best. I genuinely believe you want to make a difference. But you've had decades at the controls. It's our turn to have a shot at this game called cancer control. Us, the patients for whom this whole system was designed to help. Now, as we assume these new roles, we won't tuck you in a corner or give you a token seat at the table from which you can share your personal experiences to remind us why we're all there. No, your role will be meaningful with authentic engagement and actual authority. However, your time with absolute authority must end. Your mess must be cleaned up. It can no longer take 17 years for the research to reach the patients for which it was designed. Yes, it's taking 17 years for research and interventions to reach the patient. That alone is enough to put you in your room until retirement. We know that awesome Millennium Falcon research study of yours has 7,541 pieces. But you can't take 17 years to put it together. We, the kids, want to play with it. And worse, you're only finishing 12% of your projects. Yeah, just 12% of research projects make an impact on the patient or the targets of the research. With numbers like those, you can't touch the Lego in my house. 7,541 pieces. That is a true fact, not a pretend fact or an alternative fact. That's how many pieces are in that wicked Millennium Falcon Lego set. But that is also true facts, Kathy Stock, that It takes 17 years on average for research studies to reach the patient or the target of the research, and that only 12% of them even make it that far.
I can't even fathom that.
I have really struggled with that, and that's part of why I say that analogy that I haven't got a better one yet of 100 projects one step deep versus taking this thing all the way out to the people that it was designed to hit. And that's a culture change that we're not going to change on our own, but we are going to have a lot of fun making fun of it and ranting about it for a long time, as long as they keep asking us for their help. And we're glad to do it, but we'll continue to poke the bear on that, because that seems out of whack and certainly out of touch with what survivors would want to see.
Absolutely.
On the outcome of all these resources that are allocated to that research piece of the cancer control pie.
That's right.
Or game, as it were. So that's the outside of that. Now, obviously, last year we had so many wicked highlights, but one of them was Survivor Conference, our biggest ever in Ontario, very near Niagara Falls and St. Catharines. It was an incredible gathering of young adults from coast to coast to coast, as it is every year. Honestly, one of the highlights for me of that conference was like all-time Survivor Conference high ever, which was hearing Dr. Scott Adams, a longtime buddy of YACC, and a super awesome guru of fitness and its impact on our health. And Scott gave a talk at a workshop. It was actually more like a panel discussion, and it was lights out good. So powerful. And I mean, in the very simplest terms, I can paraphrase for you what he's going to say. He's going to say, you have control to make this idea of exercise and fitness. You have control.
because even the smallest movements and the smallest efforts can have big, massive gains. And in fact, those that do that starting progress on the movement piece, that just kind of start and get yourself going, that's where you see the biggest gains in the earlier efforts of that. And then ultimately the bottom line is whatever it is for you, it's kind of relative to you. It's not about everybody being a marathon runner. If walking for a kilometer is the hardest thing for you to do, that is really meaningful for you to do. So Scott's baseline thing, paraphrased by me, is move. Whatever movement means for you, and that's super empowering information for you. So based on Scott's incredibly popular workshops at the conference, we had a collection of questions that we wanted to throw to him. And here is some of those questions from you guys, and of course Scott's incredibly valuable and wise insights. Scott Adams on Ask the Expert here at the Big Cancer Hookup.
Scott Adams checking in here from Toronto, Ontario. I am a researcher and exercise physiologist at the University of Toronto and Princess Margaret Cancer Centre. An exercise physiologist is a type of rehab professional that works with traditional modalities of exercise like aerobic training and resistance training in groups that have chronic illnesses like people with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, as well as with members of the general population and athletic populations to improve performance. I study the unintended consequences of cancer therapy or harms caused by, and whether exercise can prevent and reverse them. There are many reasons why survivors gain weight that are either related to direct effects of their treatments on their body's metabolic and hormone function, direct effects of poor nutritional habits, or indirect effects of their cancer experience related to increased sedentary time and decreased physical activity and energy expenditure. I'm not going to focus on these causes per se, but rather what we can do about it. Weight management is best understood through a super complex equation that goes like this: calories in versus calories out. Now, that's not the entirety of the story, but at the basic level, that's what we're talking about. So this basic question, this basic equation rather, if reworded, is the same as what you eat and what you do. There's a little game I like to play when I try and illustrate the relative importance of each of these factors, and it goes like this. So on a weekly basis, there are something like 168 hours in a week. Now let's say you're a champ sleeper, you get a full 8 hours of sleep per night, so that's 56 hours in a week. From that 168, you subtract that 56, and you're left with, what, like 112 hours that you're awake. Now let's say you really want to lose weight and you're a gym fanatic. You train 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. So that's 12 hours of intense training per week. So from the 112 hours that you're awake in a week, you subtract those 12 hours that you're training hard trying to lose weight. But that means you've got 100 waking hours in your week where you're not training. Those 2 hours a day that you're training, you can burn a ton of calories, hundreds to thousands of calories in that 2 hour window. But think of it as a tug of war. So if you have 100 of something, 100 hours in your week when you're awake and not training, versus 12 hours in your week where you are training, trying to accomplish something, what is going to win in that tug of war? The 100 hours is always going to win. And that really underscores the importance of being mindful of what you're consuming around when you're training. However, and allow me to get serious for a minute, what about pizza? Good food is delicious, and it's not always easy to make good food decisions. And this is where exercise can help tip those caloric balance scales back in your favor every day. And in terms of the type of exercises that you can do to achieve this, aerobic exercise is particularly good, especially moderate to vigorous intensity, particularly good at burning calories throughout the time that you're performing it. Resistance training is also good at burning calories, not quite as effective during the time that you're training, but it has the added advantage of increasing your metabolic activity such that you're burning more calories for the couple hours that your metabolic activity is raised, even after you stop training. Similar to the conversation around weight loss, successful healthy weight gain is also dependent on both exercise and nutrition. I like to use the analogy of building a house. Think of nutrition as the basic building blocks, the wood, the bricks that you're using to build the house. And you can think of exercise as the carpentry team that puts it all together. You cannot build a house without the basic elements or the effort to compile them. Similarly, you cannot put on healthy muscle mass without the intake of good nutrients and through the exercise stress, typically resistance and strength training, that initiates the processes through which the body takes those building blocks and nutrients and assembles them into lean muscle. Exercise physiologists and kinesiologists are really the best professionals to help provide you with the advice you need to develop a safe and effective exercise plan to achieve either of these objectives. Dietitians and nutritionists are the very best people you can seek the advice of to get information and a tailored nutrition plan to help you towards achieving these goals. Fatigue is the most common symptom reported by cancer survivors, and we know that virtually all types of anti-cancer therapies are associated with an increased risk of developing or experiencing cancer-related fatigue. So the big caveat to this whole exercise and fatigue conversation is that exercise interventions really need to be personalized to an individual's fitness level and current symptom profile to make sure that the intervention itself is both stressful enough to improve function, but not so stressful that it leaves you stretched out on the couch for a couple of days because you've overdone it. And I always encourage people to check in with themselves before training. If your energy on any given day is a 5 on 10, don't push yourself through a 10 out of 10 workout. Gauge what you're doing based on how you're feeling that day, and try and push it up to the limit without going over. And this is really where exercise physiologists and kinesiologists can help guide you in figuring out what your limits and thresholds are and developing a tailored plan for you to get the most from your exercise in managing and eventually hopefully overcoming your symptoms of fatigue. So we know that a single dose of exercise increases the expression of immune-related genes, as well as the number and function of numerous immune cells. We also know that regular exercise training, there is this heightened sense of immune surveillance or activity that has been linked to multiple health outcomes. Exercise intensity does seem to matter, however, with moderate to vigorous intensity being associated with the most benefits. Now, in cancer, the potential benefits of exercise-related immune enhancement are wide-ranging and include many things like potentially decreasing the risk of cancer development and recurrence, increasing the effectiveness of cancer treatments, decreasing the risk and severity of treatment-related complications, symptoms, and infections. There is a ton of work being done in this field to figure out specifically how exercise-mediated immune enhancement improves outcomes for cancer survivors. So stay tuned for some exciting research to follow.
Yes, our buddy Scott Adams here on the hookup with Ask the Expert. Great questions and always great stuff from Scott. And I have heard from a really reliable authority that there is a 60% chance you will see Scott Adams in a repeat performance at Survivor Conference 2020 in Winnipeg this year. So we'd be pumped about that. And if you have not yet applied or to come to Survivor Conference in Winnipeg, you should get on that right now tonight. And thanks again to Scott and you for sending your questions in. We are here now with YACCtivist Jen Ryan and her husband Paul. Thank you guys for coming to join us on the hookup.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Now, no holds barred here. We've agreed that I can ask anything and you will be given truthful, honest, open answers.
Always.
But in honesty, we want to have Paul here because, of course, supporters are always included in the YACC programs, especially those 4 days in the local life. When you can come to a face-to-face event anytime at YACC, it definitely can include that supporter. It doesn't always have to be your partner, but great if it is. Oftentimes, survivors bring a supporter that is their relative, could be their sibling, could be cousin, could be a coworker. It doesn't matter who it is. We kind of phrase it like you can be a parent and come to YACC, but you can't bring your parent. So that's kind of the only stipulation. We pretty much generally don't say, bring mom or dad, but you can bring any other young adult supporter in your space that you want to bring. So that's really a big part of YACC and how we do it. So super glad to have you here to talk about that perspective.
Thank you.
Let's dial it back, Jen. It was a couple of years ago. You're 32, mom of 3, and teaching, and life is normal. And you're rocking it out at boot camp with Don, who works at YACC. And how did you get into the cancer world? What happened?
It started, I had a bad back, and I went for a chiropractic treatment. And after the treatment, I had all kinds of weird symptoms. I was dizzy, and my vision was spotty, so I went to Emerge to see if there was something tweaked there. So they did a scan there just to check to make sure everything was in check, and they found a nodule on my thyroid. So it was just mentioned in passing on the way out. The doctor actually came back into the room and said, "Oh, there's a small nodule on your thyroid. You should get that checked out." So that kind of started the ball rolling, and I went to my GP, and they ordered an ultrasound. And I had to wait about 5 months for the ultrasound, and then when I had it, the whole ultrasound was a bit bonkers because the technician was very verbal about how it was suspicious and he wasn't happy with what he was seeing, and he was in and out of the room, back and forth, back and forth. And then it was just a week later I had a biopsy, and that was right before Christmas. And then just after Christmas, January 9th, they called me back in to tell me that it was cancerous and that I needed surgery. So I had surgery. And the pathology came back and said that it had spread to my lymph nodes, because initially the first surgery they took out just half my thyroid.
Right.
So with the spread, then they went back in and took the other half.
Right.
Yeah.
When you heard those words, one of the many profound things we did at YACCtivist training in the summer was that simple exercise about when I heard. Do you remember what you wrote and what happened when you heard those words? You have cancer?
It was quite the fog, to be honest. I remember I could describe the room down to the scuff marks on the floor and what part of the hospital I was in. I was there with my mom, and it was kind of just a fog of watching my mom panic and seeing the panic and her eyes fill up and the upset in her. And I was just trying to keep together really and play it cool and be like, we're going to get through this. It's going to be fine. We're just going to get rid of it and move on type thing. And before long they were shoving tubes up my nose to check on things where they were at that time. And yeah, that word, I didn't feel the weight of the word right away. I got to be honest, it took a while for me. Yeah.
No, I hear you. And we know that you hear that word and it's your diagnosis, and the patient, the survivor, they're the ones going through that treatment.
But we also know that that creates this massive ripple throughout your life, and no one is affected as intensely as our partners and kids. Paul, when you heard those words for the first time, do you remember where you were and what was happening?
I would have been at work, and you would have called me. And I remember, well, you were kind of talking about how you were kind of downplaying it a little bit and trying to say, okay, let's move forward. And I remember that sense came over you immediately when you were talking with me. I remember the words like "the good cancer" was told to me. So
yeah, they come out of the gate with that. That is often, I think, in the attention of reassuring people, I think.
Right, yeah. And I think that's the role that you felt like you had to play with me, and I appreciated that, I think, and but I think it really did, in the same way that you said, it didn't really absorb into you. I feel like it took me a little bit of time to kind of really adjust to the idea now. Wait a second, did she say cancer? So it took a bit of time. I think I wanted to, and I wanted to kind of backseat a lot of my own emotions and what sorts of things that might have meant for me, because that was the feeling that I had, and I felt like I wanted to make sure that I was stepping up and doing my part and doing things that I could do to support, because I think that might be probably the number one thing. Because of course with our family there's a lot of coming and going, right? And there's so many responsibilities of getting the kids going and making sure that they stay positive and happy and still keep up with their activities. And so that's certainly how I felt, and after a while, I remember you saying, like, do you realize that I just told you that I had cancer? And you got kind of upset, like, whoa, hold on now. She's kind of shaking me almost, right?
So what changed in your life? Like, when you hear the words, I mean, you got 3 little kids, you've got jobs, cancer affects every area of your life. Do you remember, like, some of the things that were, transformed, or was it a process of discovery, transformation, over the next weeks and months after you heard the diagnosis?
I think for me, now, again, with some of the downplaying that I think that you got from your doctors, Jennifer, like that really kind of got me to a certain point, and I think I did really kind of think about it as being, okay, well, this is the good cancer, so we don't really have to change really much of what we're doing. But as time kind of went on, and we would have got up with YACC, there would have been some events that we would have went to, and just kind of meeting and hearing you have some of those conversations about doctor's appointments and scans and what these numbers and things meant. I mean, they certainly didn't mean anything to me at the time, but it really became real, I think, after kind of seeing and hearing you speak with those other people that were kind of sharing an experience with you.
Yeah, a big one would be the financial strain. I had to go off work for 6 months. So fortunately, we were set up in permanent jobs, and we did have insurance, and that helped out quite a bit, but it's still a shift in your day-to-day life. You don't want to be pulling kids out of their activities because you have cancer, but you got to balance and keep going, so that's something you have to consider. Luckily, we do have a lot of family help. So both of our mothers are in town, my father, and they help out a lot with the kids. When I was recovering from treatment, they were there on board, ready to go, and that was super helpful. Like Paul said, it wasn't really until we started to take in some of the YACC events that when they started talking about brain fog and anxiety and different things like that, and like relationship strains, that we kind of delved into, geez, we're going through all this, like this is where we need to be, and because we were just kind of on a hamster wheel, just trying to keep up, especially with all the kids. I mean, you don't really have a whole lot of time to devote to self-care and meditation and stuff, and now we know we do make time for it and we try our best, but until you're thrown in it.
That's right. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So you don't even know that there's a world out there full of your people or a community like YACC until you do. And when you discover it, it's awesome that you can get something powerful from it. Your kids, were, if I'm remembering, 7, 4, 2, like around that age. So you probably didn't break out the biology textbook and explain the anatomy and get into. But how did it come up? How did it factor into your communication with the kids, and how has it, as it in the last few years since your diagnosis?
We kind of used the bad butterfly explanation to kind of make it child-friendly. So I just explained to the kids that I had something in my neck that was making me sick, and I had to get it out. and they kind of gravitated to that. Like my little guy, Jack, who's 4 now, was 2 at the time, like he'll still talk about my bad butterfly, and he's kind of a little bit of a ninja guy, and he's like, I'm going to beat up that bad butterfly for you, Mom, and that kind of stuck with him, so that worked well.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I did some more media stuff that I kind of knew I wanted to introduce the word cancer to our oldest, because I didn't want her coming across a newspaper article and seeing that firsthand without hearing it from us. So we did have a chat, and she had known a couple of kids actually who did have cancer as well, so she had a little bit of knowledge, but sitting down to tell her, and I mean, kids are resilient. I mean, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened to you, and then it was like, can I play my video game? So
that's right.
It's kind of a good thing to be a kid and not feel the heaviness of it.
That's right. Yeah, no. One of the important things I think we've gathered over the years from the experts that feed into conference and other parts of YACC is just speaking to them at their level.
Yeah.
They don't want the detailed overview of the anatomy and the treatments and all of those things, but they definitely do appreciate things at their level.
Yeah.
So they understand, and I think a lot of parents would feel the same as you, of not wanting their kids to discover it from somewhere else if they can avoid it.
Yeah.
So being able to take control of that conversation, I think, is really, really important. And if we think about, you mentioned like self-care, like how do you guys feel you're doing in that space? Because it's not like it's just like 3 kids was busy enough. You threw 4 in there, so 4 kids now. You know, continued recovery and tracking you on scans and stuff, I know, and busy teaching lives. So how is self-care factoring into your lives, and how are you managing that?
My big piece is exercise. So I make sure I get out to my classes. That's a big piece for my mental stability.
Your boot camp you're talking
about. My boot camp,
boot
yes.
Camp ladies,
yeah, boot camp is important to me.
My big thing is I've got a couple of fellas that are out here in St. John's from my hometown, Stephenville, and so we got some music. We get together and we play every week.
Nice.
Yeah, we play some music. Now we're not, out downtown playing anywhere.
That's all.
But it's all about the therapy, right? The musical therapy, my buddy likes to call it. And we're all kind of to different walks of life, so that's a nice outlet for myself.
Yeah, so important to find some things that lift you up, right? That fill you, and whatever that might be. It's awesome to hear the 2 examples of the opposite stuff. So from here out, the little guy is 1.
Yeah.
And people are sleeping okay, from what I have heard, which is like, it's pretty miraculous as it is. But you're getting some sleep, and scans are every 3 months or so.
Yeah, I do. Every 3 months I do regular blood work to check up on my thyroid. And I have a follow-up body scan coming up now in probably a month or so.
Super good. And as you think back and you reflect on the last couple of years, if you had to tell supporters out there in the YACC world one thing that caught you by surprise or was a really valuable lesson that you picked up, what jumps to mind?
Gosh, well, I think the thing that caught me by surprise, I guess, would be just, the feeling of you'd never think it would happen to you, I think it's, from our upbringings, from the way that we lead our life, it really did feel like, it felt like we were the only ones that couldn't be hit by it, and but being in that position, I think I realized that the whole rug had kind of come out from underneath us, and I think the big focus is making sure that you are stepping up as you need to, but also looking after yourself, and trying to find that balance. There's a new balance, I guess, is somebody described it to me as like, it's like this new version of off balance, for lack of a better word. But so you're just learning to deal with the new normal, I suppose. And it's balancing all those different things and making sure that you still have those proportions that you had before. The self-care and the things that you do for yourself.
That's right. And things change, but you can still hold on to those things that are still incredibly important to you, and it's important to acknowledge that. And I know a lot of supporters let a lot of that go. And I feel like it catches up with you after a while if you can't rein it back in over time. Now, I know you have rocked out Retreat Adventure, tackled Gross Moor, the zip line, all of those things. I know that's right up your alley. And we were super pumped to have both of you join us for the conference last year. I think the Holiday Inn in St. Catharines still has a hole in the corner of the dance floor where you guys burned up the floor for the whole night at the party. It was so great to see you guys get away. Would be awesome to see a conference in May if you can make it.
Yes.
Awesome. And thank you so much for joining us here on the Hookup to talk about family and cancer and relationships and having the supporter perspective. We're really grateful for that. We are now going to switch gears to one of the favorite parts of the hookup, and that is when my co-host, Kathy Stock, brings one of her beautiful tunes to the show. And just in the last year, Kathy has taken her cancer experience and, of course, her life experience and put that into an album called Overcome. And she is now going to sing one of those awesome tunes from that album. So here is Kathy Stock singing Time from the album Overcome on the Big Cancer Hookup.
You wanna skip ahead and read the last page first, 'cause even if it's bad, not knowing is the worst. Summer will change to fall, winter will change to spring. There is a curtain call for every song we sing. But it takes time, that's what they keep saying. That's what they keep saying. It takes time. It takes time. That's what they keep saying. That's what they keep saying. It takes time. She's prayed a million prayers, but nothing's happening. It feels like there is no one up there listening. He's never felt this low, and there's no end in sight. He walks a darkened road, hoping he'll find the light. But it takes time. That's what they keep saying. That's what they keep saying. It takes time. It takes time. That's what they keep saying. That's what they keep saying. It takes time. For every scar there was a wound. It doesn't hurt like it used to. Hearts will break and hearts will mend. Whatever starts comes to an end. But it takes time. That's what they keep saying. That's what they keep saying. It takes time. Oh, it takes time. That's what they keep saying. That's what they keep saying. It takes time.
Yeah, there we have the album cover, like the actual album cover. This is not like Jeff shrunk down into a little guy. This is the actual old school album cover. Kathy Stock, Overcome. Also available in CD or download, of course. Thank you so much for bringing that beautiful voice of yours and this effort to the Big Cancer Hookup.
Thank you for including it. I definitely pulled from my experience with cancer, but also with connections I've made through YACC to write some of those songs. So it means a lot to me that it's included in what we're doing. So thank you.
Yeah, a buddy of mine, Steve Coombs, another cancer survivor, is a comedian, and he's done a show and a tour. And one of the first jokes I heard him say was, I hope you're going to laugh at these things because there's a lot of cancer that went into them. And I died laughing when he said that. And,
that's true.
I know this isn't just cancer.
That's right.
But there's a lot of cancer that went into that album. And I'm super proud of you for pushing that out because it's not an insignificant thing to take on. Like a Herculean project.
Thank you so much.
To get that through. And it's so great.
Thanks.
To see it in real life, and then of course to get to hear it regularly like we do.
Thanks, buddy. Feels pretty good.
Yeah, that's really great. So this is here on my desk, but I have a couple of other things over here.
I was going to ask, what do you got over there?
I pretty much always like to have some important special things on my desk, and you'll see that this one's I've got your back. This was one given to me by a super special yacker, Julie Michaud. So many of us are feeling the loss of Julie these days and thinking so much about her husband Mike, her kids Archer, Jazz, and Malcolm, and everybody who loved Julie. Such a uniquely powerful unicorn energy did Julie have, and I'm super grateful for her contribution to YACC, as well as Tava Harrison, another longtime yacker, alumni of retreats, and another person who really took her experience and used it in such a powerful, profound way through her art and her writings, her books, and it's just incredible impact that she's made on her life. And we're thinking about both of those ladies during the hookup this year, both of whom have been on the hookup and played such a big role in our community. I've got a whole collection of other beautiful things. The shoes that my grandfather gave me the day I graduated from university. These come with me pretty much everywhere I go in the workplace setting, in my office at YACC HQ. He gave me his actual shoes, his size 9 loafers, and the day I graduated university, and said, "Why don't you try and fill these?"
That's so.
And I thought they were pretty big size 9 loafers at that time, and there's definitely a part of me still trying to fill those. Another beautiful collection of things here. The hat from Katie Davidson. She wore this at conference the very first time she came, and like she just rocked it every day, all the time. And I just thought, what guts for her to kind of show that kind of attitude as Katie lived with stage 4 cancer. It was just so profound and powerful and incredible. And here, of course, we have my pepper grinder, one of my favorite microphones of all time, from Survivor Conference 2011, the very first one for Julie Michaud as well, actually. And this became my kind of pseudo microphone that I used throughout the night.
What was the best power ballad you belted out into that pepper
grinder? Without question. That was the first year ever where we kind of all got in a circle, and I took the microphone around the circle for Don't Stop Believing.
That's amazing.
That was pretty cool, unique, special night.
Very
and of
cool.
course, I got all kinds of ribbons from conferences and retreats, just so you guys know that you're kind of always with us, always connected, and always with us. So, time to say goodnight and say again, welcome home to those of you that have been here for so long, or those that are just connecting for the first time. This is your place. We are your people, and we're so glad that you hooked up with us tonight. Extra high five to Rotary and Patty Green, especially, my man, for going to bat and supporting YACC in this way. We really know you believe in what we do, and we're grateful for that. The Salt House has been a beautiful place to be, and we're grateful for that. All the hosts in the localized cities right across the country, from Victoria to St. John's, everybody in those local community organizations, we're grateful for you hosting us for the evening. And we've got some great stuff coming up that we are looking forward to sharing with you guys. We've got such a cool collection of people that contribute to make this happen. Trist and his crew, they do things every year. It's like a one-up of themselves, and we see something cool that they've done. And Kathy and I talk about, like,
Maybe we could just make this show like our whole job. This is like such a side
That's the
show.
dream right there.
Can we just do this like all the time? Because we have so much fun with them, and they make us look so good, and they do such cool stuff.
They do.
And
they make magic happen.
all the ladies at YACC HQ, Sherry, Britt, Ange, Les, Dawn, Karine, is incredible. Nothing happens at YACC without a full team effort like that. And especially to Kathy, a huge extra special thanks for all the effort you put into the show.
Oh, my pleasure.
This is like the single biggest influx of new connections, we call them. New Yackers come into this show, more than any other initiative we do throughout the year. So
awesome.
It's about reaching out to you guys and getting connected. So Annette and Blair and Jen and Paul, excuse me, and Scott, thank you for sharing your voice and your experience with the show tonight and with these survivors and health professionals, supporters that are watching across the country. YACC truly is an organization that is best when shared. I hope you'll continue to take care of yourself and that you will share the show and share the word and the message of YACC with any young adult that you know in your life that is dealing with cancer. Every cancer, every stage, YACC's got your back. Good night.